Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Today we're presenting a new film in the official competition, in the official section. The film is El Buen Patrón, The Good Boss, and we have most of the cast and crew. We've got Fernando Lenon de Arenoa, the director. We have Jaume Rudas, the producer. We've got actors Javier Bardem, Manolo Solo, and Oscar de la Fuente, and also Almudena de Amor, Almonera Amor. And I would also like to say in the front row we have another four people who are just as important, who are Sonia Almarcha, the actress, and Fernando Albizu, Tariq Rimili, and Celso Bulgayo, who can also answer whatever questions you deem pertinent to ask. I want to start this is a question for the producer and the director. I know that you've worked together quite a few years with Sunday, Princesas Amador, A Perfect Day, or Mondays in the Sun. How does that relationship evolved over these years, whether you're a family or what has been maintained and what has been kept over that time between both of you? Well, to work, I'm the one that works. I do. Fernando, he makes movies. I do the work, and he works with actors. No, we started La Espalda del Mundo before Mondays in the Sun, which must have been 1999, yes, which was here in the festival, yes. And we won an award, and which was a great film and documentary. But I don't know, I think that we started to get along in things in life and things that have to do with cinema, things that we liked and we like to do, the types of films that we like to make, and that's it. And so therefore we've, over all of this time, we've been 5 or 6, because you missed out another film, the film Podemos, which is a film which is a little different, but it also has its historical value. And that's all, and I'm very pleased. He's seen my children grow, I've seen his daughter grow, and as we say sometimes, let's see what we do to bother people. And with Javier, we've also coincided in other films, not so serious, but in other types of comedies. And I think that the parameters for creation and the way we think are quite parallel and very homogeneous, and therefore this means that Fernando is capable of putting on the screen that I imagine the marvelous film that you've seen, many of you have seen yesterday, today, and this evening. We will present and screen this evening, which at the end of the day, non-deformed photographies of what is, unfortunately, life itself. And that's it. I've run out of hair and he's got more gray hair, but we've still got a lot of power, and I think we'll continue to work together. Pepe Olanes Cardenas said, I would like to ask Javier and Fernando for the portrayal of this man who's made himself. What references did you have beforehand of Spanish, of the Spanish business world, if there is any? And then when he has lunch when he eats with his friends, and a lot of cliches, and talks about I don't know whether humor is the only way of facing this cliche, when it talks about aid for Spanish cinema. Well, let me start with this part. I think humor is the best way of addressing any subject matter. It's not only a way, at least for me, of understanding things and of explaining them, because it's part of life, and I've always wanted humor to be in some film. In some of the previous films, when we talked about Mondays in the Sun, there was some humor that we presented here in the film festival, but this story specifically, I felt the need of the humor to not stop the humor, because in some cases I've got to stop it in some of the stories, but here we decided not to do so, because I felt it was the best way of telling a story with the different angles of this deterioration of, for example, employment, and a really tough situation, and in which the landscape of employment and labor relations are linked with personal relationships. I think the humor was the best way of addressing this because it's almost cathartic, and I'm laughing at things. It's a way of overcoming things, of exorcising them. And the scene that you talk about is truth. Well, what you mentioned wasn't in the script. I thought, why didn't it occur to me during the editing, in the editing room, so therefore that's why I added it. It's a little sort of a personal, intimate way of mentioning this issue, because we've listened to that cliche that not enough money is being given to Spanish cinema. And even though when you explain it seriously, you can't achieve clearing up or whether that's the case. Well, let's see if we laugh at it. Perhaps we can explain it better. I think that at the end, humor has that capacity that fiction has as well, of the things that we don't like or seems that they don't work too well, put them up on a stage or on a screen and laugh at them, and in that way exorcise them or overcoming them, as I said. Good morning. To the question of what entrepreneur or businessman, when the script is so well done and so deep and well created, just like, as Fernando has it, this is a gift for the actor, so therefore there was very little to add. Just simply have your ears and eyes open and recognize the behavior of some business people. Men, some are public, some are private, some that don't have anything to do with the business world. But the character was already written like that, and it's quite recognizable, and it was to give it a voice and to give it a body. And obviously there are some references that you see or that you've seen in the past, but there's no one specific. Julio Blanco already existed on the screen, on the page, and therefore what we did was invent the way he behaved or something that we thought was funny, and we also recognized it in other people as well. So, and that's how it all started. Perhaps the references are more external, but the invention of the character in the script, there are stories that come to mind, but it has to do with that, the way of managing oneself and what the story tells. Getting initially into the life of your workers, so that there's this tricked sort of fooled balance that exists in that company that makes scales. So we slowly but surely get involved into the rest of the workers and the life of the workers, the personal side of things. And I thought that this brought about a lot of humor, because I think it's a character which allowed you to speak of the interaction between what's professional, what's personal, and how precarious the situation of the workers in that company was, or is, better said. Hi, good morning. I'd like to ask a couple of questions. The first is, seeing the film, I'm under the impression that there's no one that's really good in the working world. Everyone's very egotistic. Everyone have an egotistic sort of do things because of egoism. I don't know whether you wanted to. Well, all characters have a bit of a dark side, shall we say, and I'm not too sure whether that was dealt with consciously or not. And then when you wrote the script and you produced the film, looking at the labor world, any issues have been left out that you wanted to deal with, for example, the minimum interprofessional salary that a lot has been talked about as of late, and you said, oh, I should have put some of that in it or not. Thank you. Well, yes, the news are seeing how difficult it is to increase the interprofessional minimum salary. I didn't want to address every issue. It's impossible. I think that these types of films have a bit of essay behind them, but it's not a treaty upon employment or any of the kind. Fiction is that drives the story and the characters, especially the character of the good boss. And that other group of characters around him, we want there to be emotion and to get into the story and follow it, not to leave a specific treaty. It's more sociological about the world of employment, but nevertheless, what I'm really interested in from the outset, when I wrote the script and as we advanced in the story, I was interested in telling the vertical relationships of the boss with his employees and what happens between them. More horizontal relations. It is true that their relationships where solidarity or support nor class issues arise, but there's a lot of individualism and a lot of competition. You're right in saying that. Those characters, practically all of them, none of them are chemically pure. That is to say, they're not totally good. Perhaps the most positive is the character played by Fernando in the film, who is the guy at the door. So therefore, he's got less capacity of empathy. He's the only guy that has a weapon, and he's the guy who's capable of being empathic to everyone. He understands Jose. He understands the boss. So therefore, which is a disaster for his position as a job, and neither with the boss, for example, Fernando. So therefore, he's the only one who's really good, and all of the other characters, as you said before, are flawed. Things that they have to hide. It was more interesting for the narration of the film. I didn't want to make a stereotype sort of film between good and bad, what's good and bad, good and evil. But I think talking about previous films, it also told a story. It does tell how different to Mondays in the Sun. In that story, there was the feeling of belonging to a class that dominated the main characters, and in the shipbuilding sector. So therefore, they did have that, as well as the workers in the shipyards. So therefore, this is something very positive. When you have problems, you've got some direct support. And an emergency box, especially at an intimate and personal level, you maintain your identity because you belong to something. 20 years later in this other field, this doesn't exist. There's no support to the heavy industry world, for example. The working class, for example, everyone shoots on their own. Everyone's very individualistic. And Jose is, who's the guy who's camped outside the factory, he's on his own, but it's a painful humor when Jose outside says, the people together will never be overcome. So therefore, no one dares to cross those 12 meters because, and I think this happens, it's quite something that happens, and I wanted to tell in the story different to the other, which talked about the class links and resistance against the big company in the heavy industry. Hi, David Martos from Onda Cero. A question for Javier Bardem. Obviously, you've portrayed murderers and you've not killed anyone, but in this character we see that perhaps the nemesis of what you represent publicly, you're a person who's committed with activists, and you have a certain political vision and an entrepreneur that doesn't look anything like you. But apart from the character, was to get into the skin of the opposite of what you think and what you do. Thank you. I don't know what people think of me. What can I say? I imagine that I've got a bit of some of Julio Blanco in me, and it's true that I haven't killed anyone, but when you murder people in No Country for Old Men, well, you've got to be prepared to kill. That we've all got it, but the ability. But then, thanks to ethics and everyone's ethics and values, one can stop that urge to kill. An actor has to work with what he knows, which is the instrument that one has, which are your memories, your emotions, and your possibilities of being another person or character. We've all done this when we were kids. We've been many things when we were kids, and then it's either we hide it or we bring it up to the surface. And an actor has to contemplate him or herself from another point of view to be empathic vis-a-vis the character. When I read the script, I said, what a guy what an unpleasant guy, what he does. But we know that to judge the character doesn't help you to portray it, and you've got to be empathic with the character, and he's probably got his reasons to do so, and he finds his reasons to do so. And that's the fun side of it, and also the part which which teaches you when you act, so you can see realities from a different perspective, intellectually and also from an experience point of view internally. So therefore, it opens up people's vision or eyesight as regards to what you're doing. It's a character who was difficult to defend because of what he did, and other times I thought he was admirable because he took no prisoners. Yes, precisely. Good morning, everyone. Javier, I would like to ask you about precisely this. I think that you've never worked in a company, I imagine. I'm not, I'd say, I'm not too sure whether you may have. And the question is whether you like the idea of being the bad guy in the film, that character that you incorporate, and at certain moments with other methods, but reminds me of The Godfather by Marlon Brando, but in Spain, Spanish style, so we say. Well, it's in the script, as I say. Fernando's got the sick mind. I only executed what was written on the script. Yeah, he came to the shoot and said, Fernando, this guy can't do this. So every time I came to the shoot. But then I had a great time on top of it. But yesterday I saw all of the cast of great actors and actresses who are in this film. The first thing I said, look, all of my victims, they've all been victims of this man in the film. And that capacity of obtaining power and to seek power, it's very fun. It's got to be horrible to live it, but it's great to portray it and perform it, especially if you don't know what the power that you have on other people, but obviously portraying the role is a lot of fun. Take advantage to ask the rest of the actors who are here today, what was it like? What was the process? Was it fun? How did you address Oscar, Almudena, Manolo, and even the people who are in the front row? It's a film which is quite an ensemble piece. It's a great dance between the different types of performances, and I'd like to hear your points of view. With a script like that, Javier has already said it, with characters that are so well delineated, and with colleagues that are so good at this level, it's very difficult. Make a mistake or get it wrong. I don't know. I can't. Nothing else occurs to me. I say, well, the material is so good. Everything's there in front of you in the script. I don't have much more to add either. It's true. I could add a little bit, obviously. Being with on my own helped me a lot because the truth is I recorded and I had Javier and Fernando always in front of me as they were on the other side of, and all of a sudden Fernando would come up now and again and he said, oh, look, do this. But I had my camp there and above it was so well a script. When talking to Fernando, I remember there was nothing to change because it's just so well polished. And we said it was handcrafted. It was fantastic the way the script was written. Adding to that, beyond the raw material of the script that we had, I think that in the shooting, the passion, try to nail it and be in detail, not go over the top. And me, who I'm starting up, was a learning process, which was absolutely work with them. Every day was, wow, to value the passion they have for what they do. It's very powerful and it's very good. Fernando, say something. I had a great time. I I always have a great time, and I had a great laugh with the faces that Javier put on. Every time they said cut, I just fell into laughing. I had a lot of fun. A bit tough because of the sound, because of the pandemic, and we had to be apart, and there wasn't a lot of complicity because every team was wearing a mask or whatever, but we had a lot of fun. It was all great. And it's my birthday, by the way. Taking advantage. Fernando, I've thought about the working class of Valparaiso, seeing your film. Petrosi scripts about the European political films of the 1990s. That political films of Petri of others, and for Mr. Bardem, historically, a lot of crimes in the name of honor. What's the name, the honor code of Blanco? Thank you. I was just going to say, as you talked about the character, there's something that Javier was saying. I'll go back to your question in a moment, but it's very interesting how one looks for references outside, but this work goes through to finding the references internally. The actors, it's the raw material of any actor, I imagine. It has to do with seeking internally and not externally. But when you write, you've got to do a similar process. And when Javier was talking about the power relations, this was very important when writing and making the film, because that's all in us. It's inside us, whether we've got a factory of industrial scales or not. So therefore, someone who has power has the temptation or the risk of using that power. And in the business world, the same thing happens in the film. So the boss exercises that power on the workers, but there's a certain position or status in the company. They're going to exercise it on the people that are subordinate to them. It's a way of talking, not of that business hierarchy, and that would be a simple sort of a summary, but human relationships and how and that forms part of each and every one of us. We all have a potential Mr. Blanco inside of us, and it's great to know that. And when we work, in my case, that's where I write from. That's not only from the desire of the characters. For example, sometimes you write the characters that I want to make, and sometimes you write about the characters that you fear. That you fear of being, for example. It's not only what you see, but seeking internally or in your interior is also very important. That what you said, I think everything that I've seen over my life has influenced not only political films, but also all the contrary, commercial films. At the end of the day, everything leaves something in you. And I think in your training and background, culturally and sentimentally, a lot of things influence us. Your political cinema, for example, there's very good and very bad. Just because it's political doesn't mean it's good. It's not, doesn't mean it's a film. These types of films we're going to defend. Italian films and the Italian comedies in the 70s and 80s have portrayed the working class very well. They did it with a lot of humor quite often, and they've also done it with a feeling and respect and tenderness in many cases, but also with a very acid critical sense. For example, the films of Hector Escolano, for example, to mention one, it's the type of cinema that has influenced me the most, but there's a political performance of what is life, but everything what was in the story were the characters, and the story of the characters and what happened to them when they closed the doors in their bedroom and they were on their own. So they were left on their own. So my way of understanding has to drive the story, and the rest may appear in life. The honor of Julio Blanco, for example, the worst crime he could commit is what he does, the power abuse, and to step on fundamental rights and ethical and moral codes of the workers to be recognized and to win an award. So therefore, this is quite deplorable. Yes, and the grants, yes, subsidies that they receive. Hi, congratulations to all of you. It's a great film. I'm over here. Hi, Javier. I wanted to, the question is for now, I wanted to see Celtia Monte, the composer, who I think is one of the great music composers in Spain for films, and give visibility in a guild in which not a lot of visibility is given to women composers. I'd like to know, Fernando, how you started to work together and how you came to the conclusion that this is the tone that you wanted to give it to the score of the film. Well, the truth is the process, I liked it very much. It's been a magnificent process working with her. It's been very slow and laborious. We started almost at the same time that we were editing, she had to precisely find the tone, which was so delicate and so difficult, because the film has a mixture of telling what it tells, the story, a mixture of drama and how things get darker, albeit without losing your smile. But there's a lot of humor, and the humor is quite high at times. That tone, which was delicate to address, not in the script, because when you write the script, you're on your own, you see things quite clearly. But then to put it on the screen, you go through so many processes, you run the risk of that being lost. All the work with them, with the actors, each person involved in the film improved the result. And with the composer, for example, she got the exact tone, which was very difficult and delicate, I say. There's a lot of humor what she's done. It's like another layer or another skin of the film. It's got darkness, it's playful, it's sophisticated. It's not vulgar at any time, which sometimes in comedies, music ends up being very difficult to, because it wants to support humor, and I think that's quite. I think we've got to all take the opposite direction when you do humor. She did very delicate work and very talented, and I'm glad for her collaboration in the film. Always a dialogue. It's been she did the search, but we were always talking, a lot of dialogue, a lot of conversations to achieve the right tone. We shared the work in the best sense of the word, the work, and she explored and she sought out what was the best tone and the best music or the score for the film.
Hola.
Hi, good morning. Congratulations for the film, the great film that you've managed to make. I've got two questions, and taking advantage that I've got Celso here, I like to see Celso and Javier together after so many years of having, when you were brothers in Mar Adentro. What was it like to work with Javier again? And Fernando, for example, but it seems that before Mondays in the Sun came out, 20 years later, this film can be like the opposite of what that film addressed in favor of the working class and so on and so forth. And then a question, and taking advantage of Javier, that you've got under the skin of this good boss or bad boss, the evil Mr. Blanco. What advice would you give to a young person who wants to be a business person in this country, who wants to set up a business? Let me finish. From Julio Blanco's point of view, I don't know, but Julio Blanco would. I need a script writer here to say what I've got to say. That you want the balance, the scale to be always balanced, but in his favor. Celso, would you like to answer, because I would ask you about the work with him? Well, for me, it's an honor to be able to work with Javier again and with Fernando. It's the third film that we made together, and this film, well, I felt really, really good, because plus I'm the favorite employee of the bad guys, without me knowing that he's a bad guy, and I felt very good doing this work, just like all of the work that I've done throughout my life, because I work on them very, very at home on my own, and I work on them very hard to try to achieve a good performance. The results come from your daily work to a certain extent. What always occurs is that work makes you better, I think. And even the work that doesn't turn out that good, but you do it thinking that you give a very good contribution to the film or to the work that's being done. And that's what I was really concerned about. Not only my side, personal side of things, but also that part that is in accordance with everyone else who is involved in the film. And that's what I like, which gives me a lot of strength and gives me a lot of illusion to continue to work. And I'm very happy to be working with all of you, and I hope that in the future we can do it again. Okay? Okay, thank you. You asked me, what was the third question? Mondays in the Sun 20-year anniversary. Oh, different to this film. Yes, we said that before. Sometimes we've got this idea that because of the subject matter, but it's not exactly the same, but it does deal with the labor market, but there's something in the structure of the films. Both are ensemble pieces, but with a character who's very powerful in both cases, who is Santer on Mondays in the Sun and the good boss, and in both cases it's Javier, who in a certain extent links all of the stories of all the rest of the characters, and it takes them and manipulating them. There are common elements which are, I realized that when I wrote it down, there wasn't a plan to do so. I didn't have the intention, but that's how it emerged naturally. And then feel that character that portrayed by Javier in this film is almost a natural antagonist of Santa from Mondays in the Sun. We had the fantasy of imagining a meeting between both of them. What would that be like? A discussion between Santa and Blanco, because both are charismatic and they have their reasons, and we thought it'd be a lot of fun if they got together. Perhaps we might have to do this in the future, I don't know. But the truth is, they are almost antagonists. Javier portrayed the antagonist of Santa in Mondays in the Sun. I think we've got time for one final question. Yes? Hi. Congratulations for this marvelous film, Javier. I think that you come from you're from outer space, because it's incredible the work you do. But the question is is for Fernando and for Javier, from your position as artists and creators and also citizens, whether in the business world or in the capitalist society, the system we work in, to be promoted, to be successful, you've got to use power abuse, or move the scales your way in your favor, or there's any healthy way of getting promoted in the business world. Thank you. I don't know. I would say that we would have to review the word success, because what's success? Professional success, I imagine professional success, there are many occasions to be able to abuse power. As Fernando says, no matter what the work, whatever work you do, you've got a quota of power. But I'm not too sure whether that's success, or whether success is being good with oneself and be ethically healthy with the people around you. I like to believe that people are good and that people behave well in the great majority of the cases. And then obviously there are a lot of scandals that show that people have behaved poorly, and we have to point them out, I think. But I think it's all the contrary. I like to believe the other, what I've just mentioned beforehand. I see it the same. And along the lines of what Javier just said, I think that to achieve any type of success in any way, or tricking, or the scales in your favor, success is all the contrary. I think success is something else. It's whatever you do, whatever your field is, or your personal relations. I think to try to be coherent and to do it in a way which is very honest, and obviously not harm anyone. I just like Javier, I think it's not only possible, but it happens quite often. Okay. Whatever success it means, let's hope it's successful this evening, and a big round of applause for everyone. Thank you.